here. I'm going to introduce the next speaker who has to follow on me. Do we have Pete? I don't see his picture yet. His video. I'm just going to share his video. But the presentation is on the human element. There he is. Hi, Pete. I don't know you, but it's nice to see you. You have to unmute. You might be muted, Peter. I can't hear your voice. Okay, I'll introduce you. You can get your microphone sorted out. The topic is the human element of digital implementation. Pete Saddington is with Uniper, and I looked at your presentation, and this is a concept, a thing that you're going to talk about called Enerlytics, if I have it correctly. I have to confess that at ARC, we're all very technology driven. We like to write about technology, about new concepts, and we like to research them. I have a colleague, he has a PhD in physical chemistry, but he also has a degree in psychology. And unlike other colleagues at ARC, he likes to write about human factors. And it actually turns out to be my favorite area of presentations when people talk about the effect of humans on the technology, because that has a lot to do with whether the technology is going to be accepted and whether people are actually going to use it and take advantage of it. It's nice to have stuff, but it's only great if people actually use it. So, Pete, if you have is your microphone on?
I think so. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Pete, the floor is yours. We look forward to your presentation. Thanks for being with us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's obviously very different to how it was last year, but I'm delighted to be back and talking to you again. So I'm going to talk about the human element of digital implementation and lessons we've learned from implementing digital solutions in power stations. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about who we are and what we do, in case you weren't present last year for my presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about what Enerlytics is, and then how we've overcome some of the human challenges. Because as you've just said, David, one of the key things is, it's great having fantastic systems, it's great having fantastic technological developments, but if people don't get value from them, really, it's just another bit of software. So I'm going to take you through some of the things we've learned by implementing these in various different countries, different businesses, and how to overcome some of these challenges, whether you're implementing a solution or whether you're looking to bring one into your business as well. So I'm just going to introduce myself and give you a bit of my background, because that'll inform why I'm talking about this from a human element. So my name's Pete Saddington. I've been in business development, sales and sales management roles for about the last 14 years. This is not just based in the UK. I've worked internationally across various different countries, so India, America, and the Middle East as well. And I've covered a number of different sectors. So I've covered manufacturing, construction, the wider built environment and smart cities, and now I work in the energy space. And one of the things that's really struck me about this is each of these different industries, they have their own challenges, but ultimately when it comes to digitization, they're in a very similar place. So they're playing with technology that is relatively new. Some of it has been known about for a long time, but how they implement that, in some cases is very different, in some cases it's very similar. One of the big challenges that stands out in every single area, though, is the human element, and that's why I wanted to talk about that today. But firstly, a little bit about Uniper. So we are the 4th largest energy generator in Europe. We have around 34 gigawatts of generation capacity, mainly in the UK, Germany, and Russia. We also operate a nuclear power plant in Sweden, and we have a plant in Hungary as well. That's our power generation business, but we also have two other parts of our overall business. So we have a commodity trading and energy sales business and engineering services. Now, these two parts of the business we provide globally. So we're active in over 40 countries around the world. India, we have our own regional office as well, headed up by my colleague Animesh Kumar. And like I said, we provide engineering services, whether that's boots on the ground or more recently our digital services as well. So like I said, across the business, we have a number of different areas of expertise, whether that's traditional generation, being gas and coal-fired power plants or nuclear power plants. More recently, we have expertise providing engineering to wind power, and we also have some hydroelectric plants of our own. We also provide services around gas and infrastructure, liquefaction, regasification, and most recently we've started to move into hydrogen as one of the key enabling technologies, allowing this energy transition to take place to a carbon-free future. But as I said, I work for the engineering services part of the business. And this part of the business is where we've created Enerlytics, which is our digital platform, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. But you might recognize us by some of our old names. So we were previously known as E.ON until 2016 when we were divested. But in the UK, we can trace our history back to the UK Central Electricity Generating Board in the 1950s, and in Germany even further back, over 100 years in fact. So let's have a look at this challenge. There is a problem when it comes to technology in that we all have too much data now, and the solution is largely technological based. So it's developed to such an extent that data isn't really a problem anymore. It's technology as the tool, as a way of processing all of that data quickly, smarter, more quick, in a faster way. So we start with the problem, which is needing to improve, and then we find new solutions to help us with that, being the digital solutions. And that leads to an improvement across a business or across a company, which is fantastic, which also forces others to follow, which again is good. You want to be in a position of strength, leading a market rather than lagging behind in a lot of cases. In some cases it works, but in most cases you want to be the leader. But that then leads to other people improving to a stage where they're just as good, if not better, than yourself. And you get to a stage where you then need to improve, and you end up in this loop. So technology allows this because it constantly develops, and there's newer solutions that help people work better. But ultimately, you're still working in a data-driven environment. And this is the same whether it's in energy, whether it's in construction, whether it's in smart cities. Using that data to make better decisions essentially makes you work more effectively. And this is something that Uniper and our preceding businesses have always done. So starting over 30 years ago, we created a thermodynamic modeling system called Pro-80s. Some of you may be familiar with this. And then about 25 years ago, we started looking at how we could monitor the vibration of the main shaft line in a power station and started doing our own vibration monitoring. As our energy market in Europe became more complex, roughly about 20 years ago with the start of renewables, we started looking at how we could model our markets to better schedule our assets and essentially make more money from them. And then around 15 years ago, we started to look at how we approached risk management and investment in our fleet. So rather than being in a position where we had a lot of money because all of our power plants were running baseload, we were in a position where our income was stretched because we were operating in a more flexible manner. So approaching our risk portfolio and how we approached investments, we had to look at a more holistic way and find a way of ranking different risks alongside each other, whether their background was environmental, safety-based, whether it was reputational. We had to look at a way of looking at things objectively. So we came up with that. And then about 10 years ago, we started looking at how we could build on the vibration monitoring in a power plant. So looking at how we could use algorithms and machine learning to develop a more advanced condition monitoring approach to our maintenance and our strategy around that. That then led to us optimizing our maintenance strategies, whether we, instead of having just time-based outages, which in some cases are statutory, we also looked at areas of plant where you could apply maybe a condition-based maintenance structure, or in some cases run to failure, taking a lot from either the gas industry or the aerospace industry, where surprisingly these things are done quite a lot. And then more recently, what we've done is we've taken all of these solutions, brought them together in a single platform called Enerlytics, which is available online, and power stations can make use of this to run the plant more efficiently, get more performance out of it, essentially taking all of these individual applications and putting them in the same place. And the reason for doing this was very, very strong in that we noticed that each of these applications added an element of value because people were using them and they were getting value from them. But what was really interesting is that each team was using each one in a silo. And this is a point I will come back to in a moment. But ultimately, they all had a similar data feed that was feeding them. So what putting all of this in one place does is it allows the analytics system, in this case, to provide all of the information or collect all the information that a conventional control system provides, but present it in a single platform. That allows people to analyze the economic efficiency of decisions. It allows people to identify areas for adjustment and repair. And it also creates a number of efficiencies right across the business, and in this case, the power station. And that is a really, really powerful tool. What we also tried to do was use our background as an asset owner and operator to give us a better understanding of what the industry and our clients need. So coming at this from the point of view of an energy generator, we know that as an energy generator, ultimately you're in that market to be commercially successful, okay? So when we approach decisions around condition and can we run our equipment, is it safe to, we always look at what is ultimately the commercial reason for doing so. Whereas what we've seen is systems created by other companies maybe approach things from a slightly different perspective, and that results in ultimately a loss of commercial revenue. So we've tried to approach things slightly differently, and this has been really popular with our clients. We're independent of equipment and component suppliers, so in a lot of cases we are either purchase equipment or we work with OEMs, or in some cases we're competitors. But what this does is it gives us freedom to choose the best solution for our clients. We're not tied to one single route of solving a particular problem. And one of the things we've really built on since we've started doing this is not just offering people a software package, but offering a service as well, a personal service which is tailored to the customer. And I'll come more onto that in a moment, because that's one of the things we've really learned is a very powerful thing. So moving on to the challenge, and what we found is that digital is not just digital. It's and ultimately this is a line from one of my colleagues' presentations, Pete Davis, who is doing a presentation tomorrow, and I'd urge you, if you're interested in the technical side of what we do, to please join him tomorrow for that. But AI, machine learning, IoT, you know, these are modern terms for ultimately what engineers have always tried to do, which is delivering improved ways of doing things in a cost-effective way, or as much of a cost-effective way as possible. These are all tools that help people work more efficiently, make better decisions, and do it quicker. So it's quite a controversial statement, I know, but I'll try and explain what we mean by that as well. And we've recognized 4 key areas where you can see the benefits of adopting this approach, and adopting a personal service, and I'll go through each of them in turn. So the first one is around infrastructure, and I'll start with this one mainly because it's probably the most technical of the 4 areas. The first key point to make is that every client is different and on a different trajectory. So what I mean by that is everyone's in a different place in their journey. If a company is quite far on that journey, they may have made a large investment already, and that large investment will be expected to deliver results. So when you're looking to implement a system such as ours, or where a company is looking to implement a solution such as ours, the first question they tend to get from senior management is, well, we've just spent X million or X $100,000 on a solution. Why is that not giving us the value that this will give us? So approaching this in a different way, if you're looking to implement a digital solution on top of a recent large investment, having a very clear business case of what this will give you over and above the initial investment is very, very important, because otherwise people won't necessarily buy into it. What we've also seen is also sort of technological apathy in some cases. So people will be told there's going to be a new software or a new system put in place and it's going to solve all their problems. And then in some cases it hasn't. And then when we come in, people are a little bit apathetic because they've said, well, we've just had a system put in, we were told it was going to solve all our problems and it didn't. That's where it's really important to make sure that the actual business case is nailed down. And as a software provider or as a service provider like we are, we ultimately deliver on what we say we're going to. And that's a really, really important bit, is delivering on your promises, because a lot of people have been burnt in the past, a lot of people have been hurt in the past by things like this. And you can see the pain when you're talking to people. Certainly from my point of view in business development, it's very, very clear that people are skeptical about the benefits. So sometimes having to overcome that with facts, with figures, with proof, with business cases, with case studies from other companies similar to them, and in a lot of cases providing people for them to talk to from other companies where you've helped them. That's sometimes very, very helpful and really powerful as well. At the other end of the scale, you have companies that have maybe made lower investments in technology, and that then makes the rollout of a system quite challenging because they may not have the infrastructure capable of running it. So you've then got to help them put forward a business case to increase the power of their systems to hold what you're offering. It's not happened many times, but what we've found where this is we can provide a minimum level of hardware that's required. We can also run our system as a cloud solution, which takes the onus off people having to have a powerful system or a data center of their own. But in some cases, because of regional laws, personal preference as well, we offer this as an on-premise installation as well. So being able to be flexible around your offering is really important, but also as a consumer, being flexible in how you can consume that technology is also quite important as well. I'm just going to move my part over there. So overcoming IT and security concerns is also key. We work in very different times to where we did maybe 10, 15 years ago. Data security, the amount of data we use is, it's really important that's kept secure. So, and a lot of people are quite apprehensive about employing digital solutions, especially on power stations, because in most cases these are considered national infrastructure. It's really key to make sure that those IT and security concerns are met, and we do that by employing high-grade security in all of our systems. We run same, if not higher levels of security than most banks do. Certainly on our platform when we offer this as an on-premise, a cloud-based solution. And then also making sure that connections are one way as well. So we can only read from the system. We can't necessarily write back to a DCS, for instance. That also increases the level of security in the system. And then one of the main areas we found that we've created benefit for people is putting our IT people with their IT people. So this is people speaking the same language, not necessarily English or Spanish or Hindi or something. This is people speaking the same technology, if you like. That creates collaboration and cohesion, and it also increases or reduces rather the time of the implementation, because generally what we find when we're implementing these solutions is the biggest delay is often around getting a data connection sorted. Once that's done, it's a relatively quick and straightforward process. But until we've got that data connection sorted, there's always a propensity for things to drag on. So we tend to try and put the right people with the right people. They can have a conversation and then they can disseminate that out to everybody else. And generally we find the problems get solved quicker. It's quite a straightforward point. I wouldn't say I'm telling everyone here anything they don't know already, but it's a really good point, I think, that came out when we had a discussion internally about this. And I'd say the last point around infrastructure is that technology can only solve so much. Now, I know I'm here potentially selling a digital solution, but ultimately the technology can only do so much. It needs human input. And when we implement our systems, we're very clear, we're not looking to replace people. The systems we put in place still need experts. They still need expert input. And that generally comes from the domain knowledge. So for instance, in the analytics team, we have a team of software developers, a team of data scientists, but we also have a team of plant experts who've worked on plant for, in some cases, 20, 30, 40 years in one case, actually, all over the world as a shift charge engineer. And these people understand not just the thermodynamics behind the energy generation, but also the way power plants run and the way the boilers behave in certain conditions when they've been ran in certain ways. And having that domain knowledge to put into a system is absolutely key. Otherwise, it would just be a software package that many other companies offer. So that's a really important bit. not just to rely on the technology, but also the experts behind it as well. So I'm going to move on to globalization. And again, you'll see this point come up in every single point I make, is that every customer is different and on a completely different trajectory. So what we found is that scaling software requires a diverse team. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is a huge part of what we do at Uniper as a business. And I think it's becoming more and more important, or recognized as more important, within most large companies around the world. But when scaling a software offering, it's really important to not just rely on yourselves, but also have delivery partners in markets where you may not necessarily be the expert. So what we've done is, in certain markets, so for instance in South America and Australia, we've identified businesses that complement us where we have low representation. And what that's done is that's guaranteed success, because we've also been able to offer boots on the ground, people to be able to go and see the customers, especially at the moment where we can't necessarily travel. Like I said, unfortunately, I can't be in India today. Otherwise I would be. But we've recognized that this, and having these local partners, really helps us with the implementation. In some cases where we have a recognized business case for the region as well, we have regional offices. So I've already mentioned we have regional offices in the Middle East. We have one in Singapore, and we also have one in Delhi as well. So my colleague Animesh heads that up. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to be conscious and sensitive to cultural and language differences, but it also allows us to offer a more personalized service than perhaps we would have been able to offer had we not had any regional representation at all. And it's really key, because yes, a lot of companies generate power, but everyone will do it in their own way. And it's important to learn from the customer in that respect as well. So moving on to implementation. And again, every client is different and they're on a different trajectory. So it's really important to treat everyone as an individual. Power station operations, though, do come first ahead of digital implementation. So we've had situations where we've sent people to Australia to support an implementation. You know, they've traveled nearly 24, 30 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours sleep, got to a power plant, and the power plant's had, you know, an unplanned outage. And those guys have had to sit there for a couple of days before the people they were due to train were able to be trained, because they were, you know, required on site. And this then also makes digital implementation sort of almost secondary in some cases. So what we found is that it's absolutely key to make systems like this part of the day job. And again, this comes back to the point I made earlier around trying to, well, not trying to replace people, but try and make their jobs easier, their lives easier with the technology. This saves people time, it saves people effort, and it also makes the system integral to what they're trying to do, which is really important. So what we do is we will identify KPIs with customers, and we manage this closely so that we start to see a greater uptake. Again, coming back to one of the early points, you can have as great a system in the world as possible, but if people don't use it, don't get value from it, it's just an expensive bit of software. And that's what we don't want Enerlytics to be. So what we've learned is to identify KPIs and make sure that we are performing against those KPIs, our software is performing against those KPIs for our customers. So it's essentially helps to become part of their day. This means that as a software provider, or as a provider of services, we have to remain agile in the way we deliver. But this also supports successful implementation and an uptake within a business. So part of our software is condition monitoring. Where we offer this as a service, what we've seen is on average per site, around 60 people will opt in to receive not just the alerts when something's going wrong, but also the updates as well. And this gives customers almost a secondary benefit in that it shares knowledge. So I don't know about the markets you're in, but what we found in some of the places we've worked is there is a bit of a skills gap developing. So people are retiring from the industry, and not necessarily being replaced by people with the same level of experience. It's only natural. But having this knowledge protected in a system for our customers is really, really powerful, and it helps people to skill up new engineers, young engineers that perhaps previously wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so. So a secondary benefit from our system wasn't originally intended to do that, but it's something that people have really found valuable. And one of the lessons we've learned is an absolutely key part of any system is being able to store and retain and capture knowledge as well. So I'm going to move on to the last area, which is around communication. And in some cases, this is really, really important. Well, most cases, this is the most important part when you're implementing a digital solution. So again, every client's different. Everyone has a different way of communicating with the business. Some people have very flat structures. Some people have quite hierarchical structures. In businesses such as ours, we kind of have both in some cases because we're based across multiple different countries. But again, what we've found is that people are the most difficult thing to change. So what we try to do as much as possible is not change people. What we try to do is make our solution work for the people that it's got to work for. By doing that, I'll come back to the point I made earlier, identifying their drivers and the opportunities to help them and support them. So how can we make this work for you? And that's a really important point. And then once you've done that, it's great to identify all these areas, but the key is to keep yourself honest with it. So what we do on every implementation of our analytics system is we implement a project board where we have senior stakeholders. So we will employ essentially a project manager or a commercial project manager. We have a senior technical specialist, and we also have a senior commercial contact, so usually the head person for the region will be appointed to a project board, and then monthly they will, I say meet, electronically meet nowadays, with similar people from the customer's business, and we'll track progress throughout the process. So instead of just giving people a software and saying, right, thank you very much, see you later, what we try to do is make sure that this is implemented properly. We do this by essentially, yes, we take up a little bit of their time to do so, but it's really important to make sure that's embedded with their organization and with their goals and their essentially the areas they need the help. What we've also done is tried to make the most of internal referrals as well, because some people can be reticent when it comes to changing, don't necessarily want to give things a go. So instead of trying to change people's minds, what we've asked our customers to do and our stakeholders that we're working with is to share their good experiences with other people on their plants. So in some cases, we've had people who say, I don't need technology, I don't need it, I can use spreadsheets for everything. But the business agenda is to move on to a digital system. So using people who are bought in and are using that system to change the minds and the hearts of people who really want to hold on to their spreadsheets has been really powerful, because it's not just us telling a customer what we're going to do for you is going to make your life easier, it's going to make your life quicker, and you're going to be able to make better decisions. What it's also done is it's someone they trust saying that to them as well. And that carries an awful lot of weight as well. So again, a really important point, but ultimately one of the key ones, I would say. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my presentation now, but I just wanted to sum up with some of the key conclusions that we found around the human element. So you've seen this on pretty much every slide for the last 5. It wasn't a mistake. Every client is different and everyone's on a different trajectory. So as a digital supplier, we have to be flexible enough to move with you, the customers, or our clients, to make sure our solution is fit for purpose, is fit for what you need it to. And we've developed a program or a set of solutions that we feel does that. Finding mutual ground is important, whether that's in a new market, with a new product and new partners. So ultimately trying to make that work for the people you're trying to bring that solution to. And then ultimately knowing our limits as a software provider and not under delivering, because that's where you create digital apathy, and we don't want to do that at all. And I'm sure other companies wouldn't want to do that when they implement a solution, because it makes further change as a business even more difficult. ultimately, what we've recognised is that, you know, as a customer, our clients are the experts in their business, and using that expertise to build our solutions and to make it work for the customer is really, really important. And then ultimately at the end, managing projects effectively, so using trained project managers to implement the digital solution. Ultimately, it requires strong communication and a strong handle on the project. But once that's done, we've seen really successful rollouts, and it's been positive for both us as a supplier and our clients as well, who we like to think will become partners, essentially, in what we try to do. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm aware there's not much opportunity to ask questions or grab me after the presentation. So I've put my contact details up there. I've also put the contact details up for Animesh Kumar, who runs our Indian office in Noida in New Delhi. So please feel free to screenshot that, get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you. We're also both on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to us there as well and connect. We'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Pete, thanks a lot for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. It's really nice the way you opened up about what your company is doing, what you're offering to your clients as well. I just have one question. You covered it for the most part, but digitalization is an enabler. It's putting more information, it's putting the right information, if possible, in the hands of the right people at the right time. At the same time, digitalization is enabling more automation, more decisions are being taken over by artificial intelligence, partially for reasons that you mentioned. People are retiring with sets of knowledge, and they're not being replaced easily. That kind of knowledge comes with years of experience and growth. Where's the balance in you say every customer is different, so I don't know which answer you want to give, but where's the balance between enabling people and overriding them and making decisions for them?
So I think there's a balance to be found, and I think the main balance is to be found is around. So in the human brain, you have the governor capability, which is capable of making the right decision or essentially analyzing a number of different bits of information to make that decision. While I appreciate a lot of AI is geared towards that and being able to do that, what we found is ultimately having someone able to make that decision for the system may in some cases be the better one. So what our system tries to do is, in some cases, we will automate or we'll help a customer automate where it's appropriate to do so. But in order to get to a stage where that automation is possible and that automation is the right solution, you ultimately need that human element to come into it as well. So I think there's a balance to be struck. I don't think AI will ever take over the world, as much as 80s action movies would like us to have us believe. But I think there's always going to be a place for people in the process, whether that's training the models, whether that's making sure that good data is being used. Ultimately, you need that governor function. I think a human does that better than the system.
Great.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, David. I think we need to move